Always so glad you could join us. I am with Greg Engert, beer director for the Neighborhood Restaurant Group, a food and wine sommelier of the year. The group includes the two Roosticos, one in Alexandria, one in Boston. You've got the Sovereign in Georgetown. And who else could I give? Oh, how about Columbia Firehouse in Old Town?
Great
Greg,
place.
it is always good to see you.
You too.
What's on tap this week?
Well, we're at, of course, Bluejacket.
Yes.
Our favorite place to do beer of the week. And it would not be a Bluejacket visit without a Bluejacket beer. And this is a new one from us. It's called Lullaby. It is a delicious, strong lager, a Doppelbock lager, and one that we're pretty proud of. So
you hit the three basic food groups there: delicious, strong, and lager.
That's right.
Thanks.
So our it's good.
It's just
ready.
It's good. That's right.
Good beer.
At the very least.
It's got a really cool,
very least,
ruddy, like reddish hue. It's not too dark, and
Whoa! It does not taste like an 8.5. Sorry to interrupt you.
It's been softly created so that it is very, very gentle on the palate. Ro Gunzel, who is our director of brewing operations, who joined us recently after a long stint at Left Hand and Great Divide, loves classic brewing styles. He's a master of them, particularly with lagers. We've done for the company on this show before, which is that beautiful Helles lager. So for the winter time, he wanted to produce something a bit more with a little bit more heft and strength, and that's where Lullaby came from. What's really cool about this beer is how long it takes to make. So this is a beer that is slowly cold fermented for about a month. So it slowly climbs up to 8.5%, developing layers and layers and layers of flavor and character. And then we lager it for another 6 weeks in tank before release. So I mean, this beer has been, almost 3 months in the making, and that's where you get that smooth, gentle quality. Everything is in its right place. Nothing is too emphatic or too overwhelming. Really, really nice, complex lager.
Dangerous dynamite, man.
It's great.
Maybe for some of our newbies to the craft beer world, tell us a little bit more about cold fermenting and lagering. I mean, take Heineken, which most everybody knows. That's a lager.
And it's cold fermented. Yeah.
Okay, so what is the about the process?
Yeah, so as a lager, the yeast that we're using is a lager yeast that tends to be, it's bottom fermenting. So as it ferments, it tends to flocculate towards the bottom of the tank. It works better at colder temps, so we tend to ferment it at cooler temps, definitely below 60 degrees, typically between 45 and 55. And at that temp, it ferments slower than ale yeast, and as it ferments, it doesn't create a lot of big, huge, bold flavors, the way that ales are known for making big, fruity, spicy flavors. These flavors are much more mellow and mild. However, at the end of that fermentation, the beer is oftentimes kind of raw. It can have some off flavors that need to go away. Lager yeast can produce sulfurous flavors, it can produce buttery diacetyl, it can produce green apple acetaldehyde. So we then
None of that sounds good.
It's not good. So that's why you don't drink lagers necessarily really fresh. What we do instead is we drop once the fermentation is complete, we'll lower the temp even further, closer to 32 degrees, and just let the beer mature in tank. So some of those off flavors will go away, the sulfur will blow off, the diacetyl will get absorbed, and as that happens, the fermentation flavor comes out, the malt flavor comes out, the strength, 8.5%, the alcohol character dies down, and what you end up at the end is something that takes a long time to make, is subtly nuanced and composed in this way. And also, you'll get clarity. A lot of just the yeast, the proteins in suspension will drop out naturally, and so you can achieve a beer that's got clarity without having to actually filter it.
What about people who say, that doesn't look like a lager?
Of course, lagers, international and global lagers particularly, are blonde in color, meaning that they're just using pale, very, very, very pale malts, grains that have only been lightly toasted during the malting process. For a Doppelbock like this, we're using 4 different malts, many of which have been toasted longer to become darker in color, and then they're going to lend more flavor, more color, and more body to this beer. So you think of Oktoberfest, that's a lager, it's reddish. You think of like Sam Adams, that's a lager, it's reddish in color. So lagers can cover the full spectrum, but the key is that it's going to be crisp, clean, composed, and refreshing, even at 8.5%.
Big boy malts, not the weenie malts. What would you pair it with?
I mean, nearly everything. This is what I was saying. I was kind of joking before we started this episode, is that nowadays it seems like most of the time, everybody's drinking IPA, big bold flavors, sour beers of some kind or another, big, huge imperial stouts, which are all amazing. We love them. They can pose some difficulties with pairing. Malty beers tend not to get as much love. You know what I mean? You think of like lagers of any kind, but like especially malty rich lagers. And that's unfortunate because they are incredible with foods. So this is going to be perfect with any vegetable or any meat that's been nicely seared. It's going to have a toasted exterior. It's going to go with some of the nutty sweetness that we have here. I love it with like creamy buttery cheese like brie, camembert. You can bring it to dessert. Any chocolate-based dessert's going to work really now. Anything that's pork, I think, goes great with this. I mean, it's classically German. And then one of the hardest things I think to pair for beer is tomato sauce dishes. They've got like, acidity, a little bit of fruit quality that can be tough. But the sweetness from the malt here, I think, works really well with like red sauce, pasta, basil mozzarella pizza. It's fantastic.
Nicely done. As
Thank
usual. Greg, thank you, everyone. Please always do drink responsibly, and be sure to bring your thirst next time for another Beer of the Week.